The sun was shining brightly over the busy streets of downtown Los Angeles, casting long shadows on the pavement. It was one of those perfect afternoons where the sky was a clear, endless blue, and the air felt warm against the skin. For most people walking by, it was just another Tuesday, but for Leo, it was a day that had been circled on his calendar for months. He walked slowly, adjusting his worn-out denim jacket as he glanced down at the woman walking beside him. This was his mother, Maria. She was a small woman, her frame slightly bent with age, and her face lined with wrinkles that told the story of a hard life. She had spent decades working in factories, cleaning offices, and scrubbing floors to make sure Leo never went hungry. Her hands, which rested gently on the strap of her old pocketbook, were rough and calloused, the skin dry from years of exposure to harsh soaps and weather. But to Leo, those were the most beautiful hands in the world. They were the hands that had bandaged his scraped knees when he was a boy, the hands that had cooked countless meals on a tight budget, and the hands that had waved goodbye every morning when he left for school. Today, however, was different. Today, Leo was the one taking care of things. He had been saving every spare penny from his job as a mechanic for the last 8 months. He skipped buying new clothes for himself. He packed his lunch every day instead of eating out, and he worked overtime whenever he could. All of that sacrifice was leading to this moment. He stopped in front of a large, sleek building with glass walls that sparkled in the sunlight. Maria stopped too, looking up at the fancy letters above the entrance. She smoothed down the front of her floral dress, a dress she had bought years ago for a wedding and only wore on special occasions. She looked at the people walking in and out of the store, women in sharp suits, men with shiny watches, and shoppers carrying bags with elegant logos. She suddenly felt very small. "Leo, are you sure this is the right place?" she asked softly. Her voice had a tremor in it, a mix of excitement and anxiety. She tightened her grip on her handbag. "It looks very expensive." "Maybe we should go to the department store a few blocks over. They have nice things there, too." Leo smiled gently, reaching out to take her hand. His hand was rough from working with engines all day, but his touch was soft. "Mom, we talked about this," he said, his voice calm and reassuring. "I want to get this from here. It's your birthday, and you deserve exactly what you want. Not just something that is okay, but something that is really nice." Maria looked at her son's face. She saw the determination in his eyes and the love he was trying so hard to show. She knew how hard he worked. She remembered finding his bank statements once and seeing how little he spent on himself. It made her heart ache with pride, but it also made her feel guilty. She never wanted him to spend his hard-earned money on her. "I don't need anything fancy, mijo," she said, using the tender Spanish term for her son. "I have everything I need. I have you and I have my health, that is enough." "I know, Mom," Leo replied, squeezing her hand. "But think about that magazine you showed me last month. The one with the lady wearing the green scarf. You said you liked how it looked. You never treat yourself to anything. Let me do this for you, just this once." Maria bit her lips slightly. She did remember the magazine. She had seen the scarf in a window display a long time ago and had commented on how beautiful the color was. It reminded her of the meadow she used to play in as a little girl back in her hometown. She never dreamed she would actually own something from such a place. "Okay," she whispered finally, giving him a small, hesitant smile. "But if it is too much, we leave immediately. No arguments." "Deal," Leo said with a grin. They walked toward the entrance. As they got closer, the automatic glass doors slid open with a soft hiss. A blast of cool, air-conditioned air rushed out to meet them, carrying the scent of expensive perfume and polished leather. It smelled like wealth. It was a world away from the smell of grease and oil that Leo was used to, and a world away from the smell of cleaning supplies that filled Maria's days. They stepped inside, and the noise of the busy city street vanished instantly. The store was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels heavy and serious. The floor was made of smooth white stone that seemed to go on forever. The lighting was bright but soft, designed to make everything glow. Maria walked carefully, making sure not to scuff her shoes on the pristine floor. She felt like she was walking into a museum where she wasn't allowed to touch anything. She held her head high, trying to look confident, but she kept her arms close to her body, trying to take up as little space as possible. She saw a security guard standing near a rack of coats, his eyes scanning the room. He watched them for a moment longer than Leo liked. Leo felt a twitch of irritation in his chest. He knew that look. He knew what the guard was thinking. He saw the way the guard's eyes flicked over his jeans and Maria's simple dress. But Leo pushed the feeling down. He wasn't going to let anyone ruin this day. He was here with his mother, and he had as much right to be there as anyone else. "Come on, Mom," Leo said softly, guiding her deeper into the store. "I think the scarves are over there near the far wall." They walked past tables displaying handbags that cost more than Leo's car. He didn't even look at the price tags. He kept his eyes focused straight ahead, looking for the section he had researched online. Finally, he saw it. A large, circular display in the center of the room, bathed in its own spotlight. Maria's eyes lit up. She let go of Leo's arm and took a few steps forward. The colors were vibrant, reds, blues, purples, and there, right in the front, was the emerald green silk scarf she had admired. It looked even better in person. The fabric seemed to flow like water, shimmering under the lights. "Oh," Maria breathed out. She didn't touch it. She just stood there looking at it with a sense of wonder. It was beautiful. It felt like a piece of magic in the middle of an ordinary day. Leo stood back for a second, watching her face. Seeing that look of pure joy on her face made every overtime shift, every skipped lunch, and every sore muscle worth it. He walked up beside her, ready to call a salesperson over so he could buy it and make her dream come true. He had his credit card in his pocket, and he was ready to finally give his mother something she truly loved. But as Maria reached out a trembling hand, just wanting to feel the softness of the silk for a brief second, a shadow fell over the display. The atmosphere in the store shifted, and the warm moment between mother and son was about to be interrupted. Leo turned his head, his protective instincts kicking in, as a figure in a sharp suit stepped directly into their path. The man who stepped between them and the display was tall and thin, wearing a suit that looked like it cost more than Leo's truck. His name tag simply said Bradley. Bradley didn't look at Maria's face. He looked at her hand. He looked at her simple dress. He looked at her worn shoes. He didn't see a person. He saw a problem that needed to be removed. "I wouldn't touch that if I were you," Bradley said. His voice was loud, too loud for the quiet store. It cut through the soft music playing in the background like a knife. "That silk is very delicate. It catches easily, especially on rougher fabrics." Maria pulled her hand back as if the scarf had suddenly turned into a burning flame. Her face turned a deep, embarrassed red. She looked down at her dress. It was an old floral pattern, the cotton worn smooth from years of washing. She had always been proud of keeping it neat and clean, but now, under Bradley's critical stare, she just felt poor. She felt like she had dirtied the air just by breathing it. I was just looking," Maria whispered. Her voice was small, barely audible over the hum of the air conditioning. She clasped her hands together in front of her, trying to hide them. Leo felt a sudden hot flash of anger shoot up his neck. It started in his stomach and spread to his fists. He stepped forward, putting himself slightly in front of his mother. He wasn't a big guy, and he wasn't looking for a fight, but he knew how to stand his ground. He worked with tough mechanics all day. He wasn't afraid of a man in a fancy suit. "We are actually here to buy it," Leo said. His voice was steady, though his hands were clenched tight in his pockets. "The green one, that one right there." Bradley looked at Leo then. He didn't look at Leo as a customer. He looked at him the way a gardener looks at a weed. He looked him up and down, taking in the faded denim jacket, the scuffed work boots, and the grease stains that just wouldn't come out from under his fingernails. A small, smug smile curled the corner of Bradley's mouth. It was the kind of smile that said he knew exactly how much money Leo had in his bank account, and he knew it wasn't enough. "Look," Bradley sighed. He didn't bother to lower his voice. He wanted people to hear. "That scarf is $1,200. It is a cashmere and silk blend. We don't really do try-ons for people who aren't serious buyers." He paused, glancing over his shoulder at a colleague standing behind a glass counter nearby. "There is a thrift store a few blocks down. I think they have a sale on synthetic scarves this week. You might have better luck there." The cruelty of the words hung in the air. They were heavy and sharp. A few customers who had been browsing nearby stopped. They turned to look. A woman in a fur coat frowned, looking at Leo and Maria with a mix of curiosity and pity. It was a nightmare. It was exactly what Maria had been afraid of when they first walked in. Behind the counter, the other salesperson, a woman with tight blonde curls named Tiffany, let out a short, sharp laugh. She covered her mouth with her hand, but not quickly enough. It was a clear, mocking sound that echoed slightly in the quiet room. Leo's fists were so tight his knuckles were white. He wanted to scream. He wanted to tell Bradley that he had the money. He wanted to tell him that his mother had worked harder than anyone in this room, scrubbing floors while people like Bradley sat behind desks. He wanted to grab the scarf and throw it on the floor. But he felt a small, gentle tug on his sleeve. It was Maria. Her eyes were shining with unshed tears. She was looking at the floor, unable to meet the eyes of the sales staff. She couldn't bear the shame of being treated like trash in front of her son. "Leo, it's okay," she said softly. "Let's just go, please." "I don't need it." She was trying to be brave, trying to save him from the embarrassment. But Leo could hear the crack in her voice. She was heartbroken. "No, Mom," Leo said, turning to her. "We are not leaving. This is what I wanted to get you. They can't talk to us like this." Bradley rolled his eyes, checking an expensive watch on his wrist. "Sir, please, you are causing a scene." "You need to leave." "I am not causing a scene," Leo said, his voice rising. "You are being rude. We have money to pay for it." "Money?" Bradley scoffed. He looked over at Tiffany. "Hey, Tiff, did you hear that? He thinks he has money." Tiffany laughed again, louder this time. It was a cruel, ugly sound in the beautiful store. Leo felt helpless. It didn't matter that he had the credit card in his pocket. It didn't matter that he had saved for months. In their eyes, he would never belong. They didn't see a man buying a gift for his mother. They saw someone who didn't fit the mold, someone who was dirtying their perfect world. "Please," Maria said, her voice trembling louder now. "Leo, Mijo, let's go. I don't want this anymore. I just want to go home." She looked so small standing there, shrinking into herself. The joy she had felt just moments ago had completely vanished, replaced by a look of utter shame. Leo looked at his mother's face and realized that fighting these people wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth the tears in her eyes. The scarf, the green silk, the status symbol, it meant nothing if it hurt her like this. "Fine," Leo said, his voice heavy with defeat. He turned his glare back to Bradley. "You should be ashamed of yourself. You don't know anything about us." Bradley just shrugged, looking bored. "Have a nice day," he said, in a tone that clearly meant he hoped they wouldn't. Leo took Maria's arm gently. "Come on, Mom, let's get out of here." They turned to walk away. Every step felt heavy. The distance to the entrance seemed to have grown. They were almost at the exit when Leo heard the manager's voice from the back of the store. "Is there a problem here, Bradley?" A man in a dark suit asked, walking toward them with a stern look. He was eyeing Leo and Maria like they were shoplifters. "Just some customers who couldn't afford the merchandise, sir," Bradley replied loudly. "I was just helping them find the exit." Leo stopped. He spun around. "I have the money," he shouted, pulling his worn leather wallet out of his pocket. He flipped it open, showing the credit card inside. "I have the money right here." "You just didn't want to sell it to her?" The store went dead silent. The manager, a man named Mr. Henderson, looked at the card, then at Leo, then at Bradley. He didn't look apologetic. He just looked annoyed that there was a disturbance in his store. "Sir, you need to lower your voice," Mr. Henderson said coldly. "Or I will have to call security." Leo looked at the security guard standing by the entrance, a large man with his arms crossed over his chest, stepping forward. Leo looked at his mother, who was silently crying now, wiping her eyes with a crumpled tissue. She just wanted to disappear. She didn't care about the scarf anymore. She just wanted the pain to stop. Leo put his wallet back in his pocket, his shoulders slumping. The anger drained out of him, leaving him feeling empty and tired. "Come on, Mom," he whispered. They walked the last few feet to the doors. They felt the eyes of every staff member burning into their backs as they left. They stepped out into the warm afternoon air, but it didn't feel warm anymore. It felt cold. Leo stood on the sidewalk outside the store, his hands deep in his pockets, staring down at his boots. He felt like he had failed. He had worked so hard to give her something special, and it had turned into a moment of humiliation. He hated that store. He hated Bradley. But mostly he hated that the world made his mother feel like she didn't matter. "It's okay, Leo," Maria said, trying to wipe the last of the tears from her cheeks. She forced a weak smile. "Really? It was just a scarf. I have plenty of scarves." Leo looked up at her. He knew she was lying to make him feel better. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said, his voice cracking. I'm so sorry, she patted his cheek. You are a good son, that is all that matters. They stood there for a moment, two small figures on the busy sidewalk, ignored by the rushing crowd. They were about to turn and walk toward the bus stop when the automatic glass doors slid open behind them again. Lee turned, expecting to see the security guard coming to yell at them more. But it wasn't the guard. It was a man walking in. He was dressed simply in a dark hoodie and jeans. He had a baseball cap pulled down low over his eyes. He looked like he was just trying to buy a shirt, unnoticed by the world. But as he walked past them, he stopped. He looked at Maria's red, teary eyes. Then he looked at the defeated look on Leo's face. The stranger paused, his gaze shifting from them to the hostile scene visible through the glass doors where Bradley was laughing with Tiffany. The stranger didn't keep walking. He turned toward the doors. Leo and Maria stood on the busy sidewalk for a few more seconds, the sting of the humiliation still fresh in the air. The traffic light down the street turned green, and a wave of cars rushed past, the noise filling the silence between them. Maria took a deep breath, smoothing the front of her dress again, trying to regain her dignity. She forced a bright, fake smile for her son's sake. See. It is fine, she said, though her voice was still shaky. The sun is out. It is a beautiful day. We should go get some ice cream. I think there is a place just around the corner. Leo looked at her. He saw the smear of mascara under her eye where a tear had escaped. He saw the way her shoulders hunched forward, as if she was trying to make herself invisible. He felt a heavy stone of guilt in his stomach. He just wanted to go home, but he knew she was trying to save the day for him. Yeah, Mom, Leo said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Ice cream sounds good. They turned away from the store, but Leo couldn't help but glance back one last time through the glass. He saw Bradley and Tiffany laughing behind the counter. It made his blood boil, but he turned away and took his mother's arm. They walked slowly toward the corner, leaving the terrible scene behind them. Meanwhile, inside the store, the automatic glass doors slid shut again, cutting off the noise of the street. The man in the hoodie and baseball cap stood just inside the entrance. He let the doors close fully before taking another step. He didn't look at the racks of expensive clothes or the shiny handbags. He was looking toward the back of the store, where the two salespeople were still giggling. The man pulled his cap down slightly lower, shielding his eyes. He was used to being recognized, and today he just wanted to be a regular person. He was dressed in simple clothes, dark jeans, a t-shirt under an unzipped hoodie, and worn-out sneakers. He didn't look like he had millions of dollars in the bank. He looked like a guy who had just woken up and thrown on the first things he found on his chair. He walked deeper into the store, his hands loose in his pockets. His movements were quiet and relaxed. Bradley looked up from the counter. He saw the customer walking in and immediately let out a loud, exaggerated sigh. He leaned over to Tiffany and whispered, though his voice carried in the quiet room. Great. Now we are getting the skateboard crowd. Did he walk in through the back entrance? Tiffany giggled, covering her mouth with her hand again. He looks like he slept in a park, Bradley. Are you going to help him, or should I? I'll handle it, Bradley said, rolling his eyes. He stepped out from behind the counter, adjusting his suit jacket. He walked toward the man with a look of pure annoyance on his face. The man in the hoodie stopped near a display of leather jackets. He was looking at a price tag, his face calm and unreadable. Excuse me, Bradley said, stepping right into the man's personal space. He didn't say hello or welcome. He said it like a command. This section is for customers only. The outlet mall is across town. The man in the hoodie turned slowly. He looked Bradley up and down, his eyes calm and dark. He didn't get angry. He didn't look offended. He just looked at Bradley with a quiet curiosity. I am just looking, the man said. His voice was deep and smooth. I like this jacket. It looks nice. Bradley scoffed. It is $1,200, he said, stressing the price like it was a weapon. It is Italian leather. It requires care. I doubt that is something you are looking for. He gestured vaguely toward the door. If you are looking for a windbreaker, try the sports store down the block. The man stood there for a moment. He glanced over at the counter where Tiffany was watching with wide, eager eyes, waiting for the drama. Then he looked back at Bradley. You seem to have a lot of rules about who can buy what here, the man said quietly. There was no aggression in his tone, just a simple observation. We have standards, Bradley snapped, puffing out his chest. We can't just let anyone touch the merchandise. Some people, they don't belong here. They bring the tone of the place down. You understand, right? The man tilted his head to the side. I don't think I do understand, he said. I saw a lady leaving just now, an older woman. She looked nice. She seemed upset. Why did she leave? Bradley's face twisted into a sneer. He crossed his arms, looking superior. Her and her son, they were trying to touch things they couldn't afford. The son had grease on his hands. Grease. On cashmere, I did them a favor, really. I sent them to where they belong. We protect our brand here. We don't cater to. Well, you know. People like that. The store went quiet. The silence was heavy. The man in the hoodie didn't move. He just stared at Bradley. The air in the room seemed to change. It felt thicker, serious. Tiffany stopped giggling. She shifted uncomfortably behind the counter, sensing that something was wrong, though she didn't know what. People like that? The man repeated softly. Yes, Bradley said, not picking up on the danger. He was too arrogant to notice the shift. People who don't respect the value of things. People who think they can just walk in here and act like they own the place. It's disrespectful to the people who actually matter. The man reached into his pocket. Bradley flinched, thinking the man might have a weapon, or that he was going to pull out a wad of small bills to prove a point. But the man just pulled out a simple black wallet. He opened it and looked at something inside for a second, then closed it again. I think you have it backwards, the man said. His voice was still calm, but it was firm now. It carried a weight that made Bradley take a half step back. Value isn't about a price tag, it's about how you treat people, that woman. She had more class in her little finger than you have in your entire suit. Bradley laughed nervously. Excuse me, who do you think you are? You are just another guy in a hoodie. Get out of my store before I call security. The man didn't move toward the door. Instead, he walked past Bradley toward the counter where Tiffany was standing. He moved with a strange grace, completely ignoring Bradley's threat. He stopped right in front of the glass counter where the green scarf had been. The scarf was still there, neatly folded. Wait, Bradley shouted, his face turning red. You can't just walk away when I'm talking to you. I am calling the police. The man turned around slowly. He faced Bradley, and for the first time he pushed his baseball cap back slightly. The lighting in the store caught his face. Tiffany gasped. She dropped the pen she was holding. It clattered loudly on the glass counter. Her mouth fell open. She looked at the man's face, then at the movie poster on the wall near the back of the store. It was a poster for an upcoming action film. The face on the poster was the same face standing in front of her. Oh my God, Tiffany whispered, her voice trembling. Bradley. Shut up, what? Bradley snapped, storming over. I am not going to let some, he stopped. He stopped right in the middle of his sentence. He looked at the man, really looked at him. He saw the tired eyes, the beard, the scar on the lip. He looked at the humility in the man's stance, but also the strength in his gaze. It was Keanu Reeves. The realization hit Bradley like a bucket of ice water. The color drained from his face so fast he looked like he might faint. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. This wasn't just a random customer. This was one of the most famous actors in the world. This was a man who was known for being kind, for being humble, and for absolutely no tolerance for bullies. Keanu looked at Bradley, who was now shaking. You were saying, Keanu asked gently, about who belongs here? Bradley stammered, his voice high and squeaky. Mr. Reeves, I didn't realize. I am so sorry. I am a huge fan. Keanu didn't smile at the compliment. He didn't care about the apology. He turned his back on Bradley and looked at Tiffany, who was paralyzed with fear and embarrassment. He pointed a finger at the green scarf inside the glass case. I want that one, Keanu said. The green one? Of course, Tiffany squeaked. She moved as fast as she could, her hands fumbling as she unlocked the case. She lifted the scarf out as if it were the crown jewels. But Keanu wasn't done. He turned to face the room. He looked at the security guard who was slowly walking over, looking confused. Then he looked back at Bradley. You said her son had grease on his hands? Keanu asked, his voice echoing slightly in the quiet store. He works hard, that's honest work. You should be thanking him for keeping this world running, instead of treating him like dirt. Bradley stood there, humiliated. He wished the floor would open up and swallow him whole. But Keanu wasn't looking for an apology. He had a different plan. Where did they go? Keanu asked, looking toward the glass doors. I think they went toward the ice cream shop. Tiffany whispered, terrified. Keanu nodded. He held out his hand for the scarf. Tiffany placed it in his palm. He held the soft silk for a moment, feeling the texture. He looked at the color. It really was beautiful. Good, Keanu said, stuffing the scarf into his pocket. He didn't pay for it. Not yet. He walked toward the glass doors. Wait, sir, Mr. Reeves, Bradley called out, desperate. You can't just take that. Keanu paused at the door. He looked over his shoulder. The look he gave Bradley was cold. It was a look that said Bradley had failed the most basic test of humanity. I'm not taking it, Keanu said. I'm delivering it. And when I get back, I'm going to have a talk with your manager. The glass doors slid open. Keanu stepped out into the bright afternoon sun, leaving the silence of the store behind him. He scanned the sidewalk, looking left and right. He spotted them about half a block away, walking slowly near a parked car. He didn't run. He just walked with purpose, his eyes locked on the older woman and her son. Leo and Maria were just reaching the corner when Leo felt someone tap him on the shoulder. He turned around, annoyed, thinking it might be the security guard following them to harass them more. What now? Leo started to say, turning around aggressively, but the words died in his throat. Standing there was the man in the hoodie, the man who had walked past them earlier, the man who was now holding the emerald green scarf in his hand. Leo recognized him instantly. His jaw dropped. You, Leo whispered. Keanu smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached his eyes. He held out the scarf toward Maria. Ma'am, Keanu said softly. I think you forgot this. Leo stood frozen on the sidewalk, his mouth slightly open. The anger that had been boiling inside him just seconds ago had vanished, replaced by a stunned disbelief. He recognized the face immediately. Everyone did. It was the face from the movies, the face from the posters, a face that usually belonged to a screen, not to a sunny sidewalk in downtown Los Angeles. But here he was, standing just 2 feet away, holding out the emerald green silk scarf like it was the most normal thing in the world. Maria blinked, looking from the scarf to the stranger. She didn't go to the movies very often, and she didn't keep up with celebrity gossip. To her, he was just a man in a hoodie who looked very kind. She was confused. I think there is a mistake, sir, Maria said softly, her voice trembling. We didn't buy this, we left it inside. The man smiled. It was a gentle smile, crinkling the corners of his eyes. He took a small step closer, diminishing the space between them, making the moment feel private despite the people rushing by on the street. There is no mistake, he said. His voice was calm and grounding. I saw you looking at it through the window. And then I saw how you were treated in there. He glanced back at the glass doors of the boutique, his expression hardening for just a split second before softening again as he looked at Maria. That man in there was wrong. He doesn't know anything about style or class, he just knows price tags. Leo finally found his voice. You're Keanu Reeves, he stammered. Keanu nodded, turning his attention to Leo. Yeah, that's me, and you're the guy who was just trying to buy his mom a birthday gift. That's a lot more important than being me. Maria's eyes went wide. She looked at Leo, then back at Keanu. Keanu, the actor, Leo, is this true? Leo nodded, still in shock. Yeah, Mom. This is him, Keanu chuckled softly. Please, don't make a big deal. I'm just a guy who hates seeing people get bullied. He held the scarf out toward Maria again. Please, take it. It really does match your eyes, and honestly, it was just sitting there gathering dust. It needs to be worn. Maria hesitated. Her hand hovered over the silk, but she pulled it back. But it must be so expensive, she said, her practical nature taking over. I can't let you buy this for us. We don't even know you. Leo has the money, truly, he saved up. I know, Keanu interrupted gently. I heard you tell the man inside you have the money. But you shouldn't have to spend it in a place that makes you feel small. He stepped forward and, with a surprising gentleness, draped the scarf over Maria's shoulders. He didn't hand it to her. He placed it on her, treating her with the care one would give to royalty. Maria stood still as he arranged the folds of the silk around her neck. The fabric was cool against her skin, incredibly soft, lighter than air. She looked down at the vibrant green color resting against her worn floral dress. It was a clash of worlds, yet somehow it looked perfect. There, Keanu said, stepping back to admire his work. Beautiful. Just like I said. Tears welled up in Maria's eyes again, but this time they weren't tears of shame. They were tears of gratitude. She reached up and touched the silk, her fingers trembling. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much. You didn't have to do this." "I wanted to," Keanu said simply. Leo felt a lump in his throat the size of a golf ball. He watched his mother standing there, beaming under the attention of this stranger. The humiliation of the last 20 minutes was melting away, replaced by a warmth that spread through his chest. This wasn't just about a scarf. It was about someone seeing them, someone seeing his mother's dignity when the sales staff had only seen her old clothes. "I can pay you back," Leo said, reaching for his wallet again. "I don't have $1,200 in cash, but I can give you what I have, and I can get the rest." Keanu reached out and stopped Leo's hand with his own. His grip was firm but friendly. "No," Keanu said, shaking his head. "Keep your money. You take your mom to get that ice cream she mentioned." "That sounds like a much better way to spend the afternoon." Leo swallowed hard, blinking rapidly to keep his own tears back. "You heard us." "I was walking in behind you," Keanu admitted. "I heard you talking about the green scarf. Then I saw what happened. I couldn't just walk in there and buy a shirt knowing that happened." He looked at the storefront, where Bradley and Tiffany were likely watching from behind the glass. "Some people forget where they came from. They think money makes them better. It doesn't." Maria reached out and squeezed Keanu's hand. Her rough, work-worn hand contrasted sharply with his. "You are a good man," she said firmly. "A good soul. The world needs more like you." Keanu looked down at her hand, then up at her face. He looked genuinely moved. "Thank you," he said quietly. "That means a lot." A few passers-by had stopped to watch. A young girl with a phone stopped and whispered, "Is that?" But Keanu didn't pose for a picture. He didn't look at the cameras. He kept his focus entirely on Maria and Leo. For this moment, they were the only people who mattered. "You take care of her, okay?" Keanu said to Leo, tapping him lightly on the shoulder. "I will," Leo promised. "I always try to." "I know you do," Keanu said. "It shows." Keanu took a step back, signaling that the moment was winding down. He shoved his hands into his hoodie pockets, looking like he was ready to disappear back into the city. "Aren't you coming to get ice cream with us?" Maria asked suddenly, the invitation slipping out before she could think better of it. Keanu smiled, a sad but sweet smile. "I wish I could. But I actually have to go back inside." Leo's smile faded a little. "You're going back in there after how they treated us?" "Yeah," Keanu said, his eyes narrowing as he looked at the glass doors. "I left my card inside, and I think I need to have a few words with the manager. People shouldn't be treated like that. It's not right." "You don't have to do that for us," Leo said. "I'm not doing it just for you," Keanu replied. "I'm doing it for the next person who walks in there. Maybe if they realize it costs them customers, they'll change." He turned to leave but stopped after one step. He looked back at Maria. "Happy birthday, by the way. Make a wish when you have that ice cream." Maria nodded, clutching the scarf close to her chest. "I already did," she whispered. Keanu gave them a final nod and turned around. He walked back toward the boutique with a slow, deliberate pace. He didn't look angry or aggressive. He just looked like a man on a mission. Leo and Maria stood on the sidewalk and watched him go. The automatic doors slid open for him again. Through the glass, they could see Bradley look up, his face turning pale as a sheet when he saw who was walking back in. Keanu didn't look at the scarves or the clothes. He walked straight up to the counter where the manager was now standing, looking nervous. Leo let out a long breath he felt like he'd been holding for hours. He looked at his mom. She was glowing. The embarrassment was gone, erased by a single act of kindness. She looked down at the green silk one more time, rubbing it between her fingers. "He didn't have to do that, Leo," she said, wiping a happy tear from her cheek. "No, Mom," Leo said, putting his arm around her shoulders. "He didn't, but I'm glad he did." "Me too," she agreed. She looked up at her son, her eyes shining. "Now you heard the man. We need to get ice cream. I think I want chocolate, a big scoop." Leo laughed, the sound feeling good and natural again. "Chocolate it is, Mom." "Whatever you want." They turned away from the store, leaving the drama and the cruelty behind them. As they walked toward the ice cream shop, Leo felt lighter than he had in months. The world could be harsh, and people could be mean, but every now and then, someone comes along who reminds you that there is still a lot of good out there. And today, they had met the best of them. Behind them, inside the quiet store, they could see Keanu talking to the manager. He was speaking calmly, but from the way the manager's head was dropping, Leo knew he was giving them a lesson they would never forget. Leo smiled to himself. Justice tasted pretty sweet, but he had a feeling the ice cream was going to taste even better. Inside the boutique, the silence was heavy. It wasn't the peaceful silence of a library. It was the suffocating silence of a room where everyone knows they have made a terrible mistake. Bradley stood frozen behind the counter, his face the color of sour milk. Tiffany was pretending to organize a stack of receipts, her hands shaking so badly the paper was rustling loudly. The manager, Mr. Henderson, stood in front of Keanu, wiping sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Keanu didn't look angry, he didn't shout. That was what made it so much worse for them. If he had yelled, they could have dismissed him as just another crazy customer. But he stood there calm and steady, looking them in the eye with a disappointed gaze that made them feel like small children. "You have a beautiful store," Keanu said, his voice low but clear. "The clothes are nice, the location is great, but the service is broken." "Mr. Reeves, please," Mr. Henderson started, his voice trembling. "I apologize." "Bradley didn't know who you were. If we had known—" Keanu held up a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "This isn't about me. I don't care if you know who I am. You treated two good people like they were garbage. That woman has probably worked harder in her life than anyone in this room. She came in to celebrate a birthday, and you made her feel like she didn't belong." Bradley looked down at his shoes. I was just following protocol about handling the merchandise," he mumbled weakly. "No," Keanu said firmly. "You were being cruel. There is a difference. You saw their clothes and you decided they weren't worth your time. That isn't selling. That's just being a bully." He pulled his credit card out of his wallet and placed it on the glass counter. It made a sharp asterisk click asterisk sound. "I'm taking the scarf, and I'm paying for it. Not because I want to give you my money, but because I promised that lady she would have it. Mr. Henderson quickly picked up the card, eager to end the interaction. Of course, no charge, sir. Please take it as a gift." "I said I'm paying for it," Keanu said, his voice hardening. "I don't want special treatment. I want you to do your job, treat me like a customer." Mr. Henderson nodded frantically and ran the card. The machine beeped. Keanu took the card back and slipped it into his pocket. "I want you to think about something," Keanu said, looking from the manager to Bradley and then to Tiffany. "You sell luxury items. You sell things that are supposed to make people feel good. But what is the value of a $1,200 scarf if the person selling it makes you feel worthless? You're selling the feeling, not just the fabric, and today the feeling you gave out was ugly." He turned to leave, but paused at the door. He looked back over his shoulder. "If that was my mother, I wouldn't have walked away. You got lucky today. You should remember that." With that, he pushed the button and the glass doors slid open. He stepped out into the fresh air, leaving the three of them standing in their pristine, silent shop, feeling smaller than they ever had before. A block away, the mood was completely different. The ice cream shop was small and cramped, with fluorescent lights buzzing overhead and a sticky floor. But it was filled with the smell of waffle cones and sugar and the sound of happy chatter. Leo and Maria sat on a small metal bench outside the shop, enjoying the last of the afternoon sun. Leo had a vanilla cone, and Maria had a large chocolate scoop in a cup, topped with rainbow sprinkles. She was wearing the green scarf. It flowed down over her simple dress, catching the light every time she moved. It looked expensive, yes, but it also looked right. It looked like it belonged to her. "This is the best ice cream I have had in years," Maria said, licking her spoon. She laughed, a sound that was light and free, completely different from the nervousness she had shown earlier. "It's pretty good," Leo agreed, watching her. He felt a sense of peace he hadn't felt in a long time. The anger about the incident at the store had faded, replaced by a deep sense of gratitude. "Do you think he is really okay?" Maria asked suddenly, looking down the street toward the boutique. "That man, Keanu, he went back in there all alone." "He shouldn't have to fight our battles, Leo." Leo smiled. "Mom, I think he can handle himself. Besides, he didn't do it just for us. He did it because he's a good person. Some people just have that in them." Maria adjusted the scarf, stroking the soft silk. "I still can't believe he gave this to me. It feels like a dream. I am going to keep this forever. I am going to wear it to church on Sunday. I am going to wear it to your cousin's wedding." "You should wear it every day," Leo said. You look like a movie star. Maria laughed again, shaking her head. Oh, stop, I look like an old lady in a green scarf, but I do feel beautiful. I haven't felt this way in a long time. That's because you are beautiful, Leo said simply. It took a stranger to see it, but I've known it my whole life. Maria reached over and patted Leo's knee. You are a good son, Leo. You saved up all that money. The fact that we didn't spend it there doesn't matter. You tried to do something wonderful. That is what counts. Just then, Leo saw a figure walking down the street toward them. It was Keanu. He had his hands in his pockets and was walking at a leisurely pace. He didn't look like a celebrity. He looked like a neighbor taking a walk. Leo stood up as he approached. Hey, Leo said. You came back. Keanu smiled and nodded at them. Yeah, all settled. He looked at Maria's ice cream. That looks better than anything in that store. It is delicious, Maria said. Thank you again, truly. I don't know how I will ever repay you. You don't have to repay me, Keanu said. He looked at the scarf on her shoulders and smiled warmly. Just enjoy it. And promise me you won't let anyone tell you that you don't belong anywhere you want to be. I promise, Maria said softly. Good, Keanu looked at Leo. Take care of her, man. I will, Leo said. Keanu gave a small two-finger salute and turned to walk away. Have a good night, you two. Good night, Maria called out. They watched him walk until he turned the corner and disappeared into the crowd. He didn't look for applause or attention. He just left them with their ice cream and their dignity. Leo sat back down next to his mother. The sun was starting to dip lower in the sky, casting a golden light over the street. The city was rushing around them, people hurrying home from work, cars honking, the world moving fast. But for this moment they were content. So, Leo said, finishing his cone. What do you want to do now? Maria looked down at her empty cup, then up at the sky. She took a deep breath of the cool evening air. I think, she said, I want to go home, I want to make some tea. And I want to call my sister and tell her about the craziest day we ever had. Leo smiled and stood up, offering her his arm. That sounds like a plan. They stood up together. Maria held her head high. The shame of the boutique was completely gone, replaced by a quiet confidence. She held onto Leo's arm, not for support but for connection. As they walked toward the bus stop, the green scarf flowed behind her like a banner. It wasn't just a piece of fabric anymore. It was a reminder that kindness exists in the world, often in the places you least expect it. Behind them, the lights of the luxury store flickered on. Bradley and Tiffany were inside, cleaning up, likely dreading the next day. But it didn't matter to Leo and Maria. They had something better than luxury. They had each other, and they had a story they would tell for the rest of their lives. The day a movie star taught a rude salesman a lesson and made a mother feel like a queen. Leo looked at his mom one last time as they waited for the bus. She was smiling to herself, humming a soft tune. The green scarf shimmered in the streetlights. It was a simple ending to a crazy day. Just a mother, her son, and a perfect evening. And that was worth more than anything in any store window.